Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about productivity, how to turn your busyness into productivity so you can focus on your business. I love it. We're honored to be joined by productivity coach and speaker at Life is Organized, Mridu Parikh. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, how can I not with that energy? This is awesome. Thank you.
Hey, well, we get to have a fun conversation focused on very important topics, and all of us are busy. And so it's like, how do we maximize that and turn that into the ability to be productive and get things done? And so we'll talk all about that. But give us a little bit of your backstory in terms of how you got into this business of organization and productivity.
Yeah. So probably like many entrepreneurs, it's taken many iterations, my business, but essentially when I had the opportunity, let's put it that way, to leave corporate, I was just trying to figure out what am I good at? I would love to do something on my own and get that freedom and flexibility that everyone's craving. So I knew I was really great at organizing. So I launched my business, Life is Organized, as a professional home organizer, thinking, well, great, I know how to organize. This will be great. The thing is, I had no idea how to run a business. I could organize the closets all day long, but didn't know how to do that. So like many women or entrepreneurs, I was finding myself really scattered, overwhelmed, just like overloaded, spreading myself too thin, and thinking like, how can I be working this hard? I'm putting in so much energy and so much time, but I'm just not seeing the results. So I just sort of went down a personal development path on time management, productivity, started learning all the things, like absorbing everything, learning it, trainings, all the stuff. And as my life was over time transforming into a place where I could really focus so much better, I could prioritize. I recognized the systems that were holding me back, the routines, all those things. As I came out on the other side, I was like, this is where I really need to be. I think this is before you even, get organized, you have to really know how to focus and like, what are my priorities and how to use my time better. And so for the last 6 years, that's where I poured my blood, sweat, and tears. I love it. It lights me up. I get to help other entrepreneurs and other people with them, helping them handle all of their demands and all their distractions across all the busy areas of their life.
I think we can all relate to putting, all this effort into a day. The days, it flies by. And then at the end, you're like, what did I get accomplished? Like, I felt like I was really busy, but I didn't necessarily get anything or the major things that I needed accomplished. And then at the same time, by the end of the day, you get home and, you get ready to go to bed and you're kind of like burned out and frustrated. And so I think there's a lot of dynamics that everyone can relate to, that these are all topics that you focus on. So give us a little bit, when you start sitting down with someone and you start assessing the situation of where they're at, what are the questions you like to ask? What are the things that you look at?
Yeah. So the simplest, and I keep things, my questions are so simple but simple is not always easy to do, but just what do you want? Like, what do you want out of your life? What do you want out of your business? What do you want out of your relationships? Like, what would make you happy? I think many of us, we fall into the rut, the routine, the structure of everything being thrown at us. And it's like Groundhog Day, right? You wake up, we do the same thing and it's, and we're trying to pay the bills and keep the roof over our head. So we're doing it, but is it like, what do you really want? How do you want, if you're a business owner, how do you want your business to run? Do you want to work 4 days a week? Do you like working 7 days a week? Do you want to, how does it feel to you? And that's where we're going to start, because we're like, let's get to what you actually want so we can reverse engineer those systems and goals and priorities and delegation and team so that you can get there. So sometimes it's easier to identify what you don't want. So sometimes we'll start there. You're like, okay, what's really frustrating you? If you don't even know what you want, what's making you crazy right now? And that's going to help us figure out what you want.
When you look at things like procrastination, time management, prioritization, touch on some of those things, because these are all things that you talk about in keynotes. You put a lot of good information out there on a regular basis, obviously the coaching that you do. So go ahead and start kind of diving into some of the main challenges that you're often faced with from your clients and from audiences, things like procrastination.
Yes, procrastination is a huge one, and we can definitely get into that. Perfectionism is another massive one. So we don't feel comfortable delegating work, or you're like, it's just easier for me to do this myself than give it to someone else, which means it's just more things on your plate, right? People pleasing, definitely, like just almost everyone I work with, I'm sure everyone listening to this is ambitious and driven and a service driven, right? So you're like, I'll just continue to say yes, whether it's personally or professionally. So these are common themes all the time. Although people don't necessarily come to me and say, I have a really big issue with boundaries. That might not be what they're saying, but that's what we're identifying as we're sort of like peeling back the onion there. We're like, okay, I think, you're having a hard time maybe putting up those parameters where they need to be. So those are some big ones that I hear a lot. And also just a general kind of lack of structure, routine, organization. I'll kind of put that all in one category of I'm running by the seat of my pants. I am doing all the things. I'm wearing all the hats, but it's so just like fly by night, just like, let me just get out the door instead of having that moment or two to breathe and think about what is my top priority? How do I focus better? Could I give this to someone else? Because we don't even have that breathing room in between.
You, I know, talk a lot about like retraining your brain. And so really creating new habits and structures. And so talk about how that relates to those very topics that, I'm, guilty of myself, talking about people pleasing and not being able to say no and boundaries and things like that. So talk about kind of where it starts to retrain your brain and how that process works on your end. Share a little bit of the magic.
Yeah, for sure. So it's, as you can imagine, there are small steps. You don't wake up and run the marathon after not exercising. So they're really small. And that's how habits end up sticking. I don't know if it's 21 days or 30 days or 45 days or all the things we read. I just know that if you do them in small increments, you're more likely to stick with them and not do 100 things at one time, right? So pick a couple of small little tweaks. So a small tweak might be for someone who's always running late in the morning, let's pick out your clothes the night before. A small tweak for someone who sits at their desk and is just overwhelmed, doesn't know where to put their focus is, pick one thing before you get started. And another small tweak might be, and use a timer. There's small little things that add up to really big changes in your life, but also this, more time, less stress, more joy, more presence, better relationships, more creativity, more time for strategic work. So it's small things. And that's how I work with my clients. Let's pick one or two, try it for a week. I'm here for accountability. I know I'm here to keep you on track. And over a little bit of time, you'd be like, all right, I got that. Right. And now let me do another one. And we just add it. We just keep doing it like that. In a way, we adults, like myself, are like kids, right? It's like teaching our young kids that one thing at a time, and then they get it, then they tie their shoelaces, and then the next week they can do their hair, and we just keep doing that. And so, but we absolutely have the power to retrain our brain. I know so many times people say, I'm just not wired that way. That's just not me. And I don't buy it at all. We can absolutely train ourselves to be, that better version.
Well, and just like you're talking about, it's being mindful, but it's also too someone saying, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you try this? Let me hold you accountable and let's reframe and reset, recalibrate so that eventually, like you said, these small steps lead to bigger and better outcomes and new habits that can be more productive so that you can be more present. One of the other things that I really like that you touch on is being more effective in your meetings. And I think all of us struggle with team meetings, how to make those productive, make them engaging. Touch on some of that side of what you do in terms of helping with meetings.
Yeah. So typically when you're creating a meeting, you put a meeting on your calendar and you invite people. I think that's where most of our work ends. We're like, let me think about who to invite. Let me set it up. Let me get the conference room. Let me pick the plates. We send it out. But that's really where the work begins. I think that it's in the meeting that the leader has got to be a leader. So, here's a quick agenda. And by agenda, I don't mean like, let's go waste time at the copy room and print something out. Here's my 3 bullets I can include in the meeting invite. Here's my 3 bullets on a whiteboard when I get in so we can stay on track. And we're going to spend 10 minutes on A, 10 minutes on B, and 10 minutes on C, right? And if you're going over, I'm going to say, hey, listen, in the interest of time, in the interest of getting everyone heard, let's like wrap that up in the next minute and let's move on to point two. So your responsibility becomes as a leader in that meeting, and that's how you start being more effective in the meeting. And then people start respecting you more, right? I mean, every time when we teach people how to respect our time. So if you respect your time more, then people are going to take that time more seriously. So you'll in turn see that when they show up to the meeting, those latecomers may be a few minutes early because they know you're going to start on time. The ones who ramble on may over time start like making it more succinct because they know you're serious about your time, right? So it not only helps you, but it also engages and helps other people in the meeting.
Yeah, I think that soundbite right there, in terms of advice is huge. And hopefully, so many people will pay attention to that and take that, because I think that, just what you offered there is extremely valuable insight. Talk about the coaching you do. I mean, we're kind of touching on this, obviously, but talk about, professionally what you do and how you're helping individuals and companies and organizations. So go ahead and dive in deeper on that side.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I work in two ways. So when I do one-on-one coaching, typically, mostly entrepreneurs, but also other people in other professionals. And I help you master your time, master your focus, and your systems and routines. So it's a lot of things we talked about. You're like, I have a million things on my plate. Where do I put my energy? And you mentioned right when we started this feeling of I can work all day, and then at the end of the day, still feel like I got nothing done. And that's so frustrating for everybody. It's so frustrating for me to hear. And it's so frustrating when we are all putting in so much time. So for me, it's like, how do I help you feel more successful about what you're getting done? So it's not only just the time or your energy, but I want you to feel less overwhelmed and feel really good about what you are doing. So that now you go to bed, instead of kicking yourself, being like, I didn't get anything good done, or what did I get done today? Now you're like, I did what I set out to do, and now I feel inspired. I want to sleep better during the night. I'm not going to wake up 3 times. I'm going to maybe not skip my workout in the morning. I'm going to make better food choices. All of those things simply because I feel better about what I get done. Now I feel more motivated for the next day. And so it's like, again, that's like that the snowball effect of how you really feel. Because I think then that's going to impact the type of boss you show up as, the manager, the husband, wife, parent, all the things. So that's what I help with really when I'm coaching. And then similarly, I go into companies and I do trainings with their teams or departments or the entire organization on many of the similar topics: focus, prioritization, but meeting management, meeting efficiency, email management, boundaries, project management. I mean, gosh, it's just every part of our lives is touched, I think, by, we're all so busy and there's so much happening, and communication between teams and your own personal productivity. So that's really the ways that I help my clients, and it's fun. It's really rewarding for me.
And I love that you said, the inspiring, right? And the confidence and the other things that come about when you start feeling like, hey, things are going in the right direction. And what that does is it fights burnout, right? And burnout was such a buzzword coming out of the pandemic, and obviously still is, when you talk about retaining and developing talent, attracting talent, and how do you combat against burnout. And so talk about kind of that in terms of that ripple effect, just like you mentioned, that all of this creates to then have you feel empowered and confident and inspired with the work you do and with what you're able to pour into others. Because if your cup's not full, you can't pour into others, including your family. So talk about the ripple effect that this is creating in a much larger context.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when it comes to whether it's your own company or you're part of a larger organization, that burnout is going to lead to a lack of morale, right? I mean, you're just not going to feel as inspired and motivated. You're not going to feel as valued, which means you're not going to contribute in your highest capacity in your I mean, I know it's so overplayed to say show up as your best self, but really you're just not going to show up that way as the leader or with the creativity or the strategy that you can. And I do, and very much in my work, for me, life is integrated. And so it's not just your work life, it's your home life, it's your relationships. It's like I mentioned, your spouse or kids or mother or whoever it is, or in your community, right? How we give back to our communities. I mean, all of this is a ripple effect of the energy that we have, or how we're feeling about ourselves, what we believe we can accomplish. We self-sabotage a lot, and we have a lot of stories we tell ourselves of how limited we are, or how much, even just the way we think about our time and what we're capable of. And it's not that we need more time. I swear, it's really just if we could use it better for things that are more fulfilling and more rewarding. And yes, and then that means figuring out ways to make it more efficient, to, systemize it better, to have more routine, but it's an incredible effect, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, I love it. So where do we go to carry these conversations forward, to connect in with you, learn more? Website, social media, where do we go?
Well, since those who are listening to a podcast, maybe a podcast is a great place to start and a really great way for you to get to know me. And my podcast is called Productivity on Purpose. I have about 160 episodes now. So it is geared towards the woman business owner, just so you know, but anyone can benefit from it. And then you can find me in all places Life is Organized, lifeisorganized.com. That's my website. Life is Organized on Instagram, Facebook, and Mridu Parikh, which is, you'll have to look that up in the show notes of how to spell that one, is on LinkedIn. So I'd love to connect. I love these conversations, and any way that I can support you, don't hesitate to, those listening, to reach out.
I love it. Once again, just like you mentioned, the website lifeisorganized.com. So you make it easy. So Mridu, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.